There are just certain people that impact our lives, especially us in the media. There's just something about them. Maybe it's the way they conduct themselves, the way they race, the way they treat their family, the way they interact with others, their integrity, respect, you name it. And the more you watch these people, the more you want to know what makes them tick. So when the opportunity arose to interview this individual, we jumped at it so fast, you'd think we were part of the United States track and field team. This is our part 6 of 6 with NASCAR icon Dave Marcis. We can't believe it's over. Even after getting up from our sit down, he and I spoke for another hour and a half. Sure wish I had the camera rolling then. But thanks for watching what you did, and we hope you enjoyed it. And this final installment, we think, is the icing on the cake.
If Dale Earnhardt Sr. at a racetrack, he never walked by her without giving her a hug. Wow. Never. Marty Robbins, she's got a picture there from
Marty Robbins. Wow.
Marty done the same thing. He would come and give her a hug. I was good friends. You ever hear that record that us guys sang?
Yeah, NASCAR Goes Country.
Marty wrote my song.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, I can just imagine. Now it's no big deal, but back then, in 75? Yeah, you and Daryl and Buddy.
He said,
and
this is a song for you, he said. I'm going to write your song.
Well, no offense, but everybody remembers Buddy and the good old buttered beans.
Yeah. And Childress's T-Bone.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Oh, I did a YouTube story on that a few months ago.
Did you?
Yes, and here's the funny part. I didn't know the footage was on, because they're putting, the channel's called NASCAR Classics, and they had just put it up a couple months before that.
Oh, really?
I had an old car and track, or road and track, or whatever, car and drive or whatever, and I just remember as a kid looking at that, and how Marty just turned it into the wall to save Richard, and I just imagine, well, look what happened to Bobby when he got doored. Yeah. So I mean, it could happen to Richard. So,
right.
When I see Richard, I also want to ask him about 1980 in Martinsville when he ended up against Nelson Maylock's truck, that Sanyo car. I don't know, Showback shot that or Russell Hamilton. But anyway, yeah, I could have been big too, because how open Martinsville was at the time when he came off of 2, Yeah. So, but yeah, and here's a question I was going to ask you: when you saw Richard go and be a car owner, did you think the days of the independence might be coming to an end? Because if Richard's going to go do this, should I go do this too? I mean, are my days as a driver over? Was that maybe a thought?
I still miss the driving. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, I don't really know. But basically, my deal was enough money to do it right, and maybe have to hire a driver too. In my era of the sport, like you say, I didn't get no salaries from K&K Insurance. I drove for a percentage. Ray Mox, anybody. So, I mean, you just didn't get salaries like these guys get big checks now today. And like I say, I don't know anything about the prize money today. They never list nothing no more.
Right.
So, obviously, there's a reason they got it.
There's a reason.
So,
right.
So, and all that was taking place. And a little guy just couldn't stick up with it. But the equipment, like I said before, I probably would be better off equipment-wise. I'd be equal.
Right. Had you had offers like Richard got? Had you had offers? Hey, we're going to go as a big sponsor. We're going to put... Well, I'm sure you got offers like that all the time. But
yeah.
That was real.
Ricky Rudd talked to me at one time to be a crew chief for him. And who else? See, there were several people, but I really wasn't interested in that. Doing that.
Right. So what made you choose this area, Asheville? I mean, you're way out here in the western part of the city.
Well, it's a nice area in the mountains. I like to hunt. I like to fish.
As you can tell by how the trophies are on the
When I went to Daytona, my first race in '68, I think it was then, when we came home, in those days, NASCAR had a race at Asheville-Weaverville after Daytona. So we decided that we would run that race on the way home. So we came here, and I met Tom Ingram and Jack Ingram. And Tom built engines, Jack's brother. I needed somebody to work on my Hemi engines. Ben Barnes worked for Tom Ingram, also, and Ben's an engine man who's still doing engines yet today.
Oh, wow.
And
Bob Presley Drive is up over here. The Presleys were here.
yeah, and that Celebrities hot dog stand you went
Past
by,
it, yeah.
that's Robert Presley's
Yep.
stand.
It was not what I thought it was going to be, but okay.
Yeah. But anyhow, there was a lot of racing people around here. Cecil Gordon was here, and his brother.
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
Cecil's from just up the road,
Horseshoe
about
or
7
something
miles.
like that, or whatever?
Horseshoe, yeah. And I mean, there was a lot of race people around here. Banjo shop was here. The old Jackson shop was here.
You're right. Banjo shop was. I thought somebody's
Yeah,
shop.
Banjo shop's
Car builder.
at the airport exit. Just I guess 7 miles from here.
You're right.
And Leo Jackson. So there's a guy that machine work.
Who you won a late model sportsman race with at Darlington, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Rockingham, I won one too. Charlotte too.
Yes. You're
All
right.
3 of them were in Leo's sportsman.
Some of those are on YouTube
Yep.
now
Yep.
too. So
So that's what I
forgot
said
about those.
before. When I drove a good car, I did the job. So, but anyhow, I liked the area. I met a lot of people, and I just thought it'd be a nice place to be. 2 of the guys that actually helped me in the pits at Daytona that I didn't know at the time, Bill Seifert and Cecil Gordon knew them, and they rounded up some people to help me because I didn't have a pit crew. I didn't know what I needed for a pit crew when I first
You
went.
don't know what you know. You don't know,
I just
right?
loaded my stuff in Wisconsin and went to Daytona. But anyhow, I told them I was looking for a place for a shop. I found a building when I was up here. I told them I was going to move a trailer house down here. One of those 2 boys that was helping me had an aunt that lived right up the road here.
Okay.
I don't know if you noticed that great big monster gray house just a mile up the road when you came. That's where my trailer house was parked.
Wow. Okay.
She was a widow lady, and she lived in a big rock house there, a beautiful house. And they said that she used to have a trailer house up behind her house, so the hookups and everything were there. So I went and talked to her, made arrangements to park our house trailer, and that's where it stayed for 24 years.
Wow.
And so everything just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
And,
Sounds like it.
It was a super nice area. They weren't building houses here like crazy then. Now they don't fix the roads. They ain't keeping up with the times.
And if you even try to text and drive out here, you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Let alone anything
Asheville
else.
used to be like considered,
Rural.
yeah, I mean, like Paris or something. I mean, just it had a great reputation, but now the traffic's so bad, the roads ain't keeping up with it. You go out of here in the morning, you can sit down here at the end of Avery Creek Road for 4 or 5 light changes before you even get out to Highway 191. And the interstate, every morning it's blocked and wrecks and shut down with all that construction.
Coming
It's a
in.
horrible mess.
I appreciate your patience coming in. I'm an hour and a half late. And
Yeah.
dear Lord, well, I'm sure you knew that
I
was
told
coming.
you on the telephone.
Well, and like I said, I looked on my, everything was red.
Yeah.
40, 77, well, not 77, but 81, 26, 240, it was all red.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll come down to 81, take a chance. And then the whole freeway's blocked. for me
That's
coming up.
that's kind of why I suggested 77 to 40. It would have got you at least over here to the farmer's
I'd
market.
have thought, well, I looked at it and said, well, it's in half an hour more. And like I said, it was red coming in. I thought, oh, geez, what do I do? It's 6 one, half a dozen the other.
Yeah.
But so up to the very last question for you. I mean, you're not going anywhere, but this is more like a legacy type of question. And I got to lead into it by bringing up Kyle. And Kyle's been around he's 70, he just turned 70. He knows everybody. Chicago, he worked for the
Yeah, I
Dodgers,
know.
Lou, and he's been spotting for the Petties and JR Motorsports and Junior, and just even recently Stuart Haas. He was a engine tuner for Chip, and we were talking one day about the greatest compliments we'd ever had, and I told him mine, and he said, and so I usually ask people what would like their legacy to be, but maybe I'm about to tell you yours based on what Kyle said. He said it was late 90s, early 2000s. He said he was under one of Chip's hoods, and he said Dave Marcus walked up
with his plugs and asked me to check them. He said, Dave Marcis. He said that was probably the greatest compliment I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yes. So is that something like that? You know, that's not an exaggeration. You know, we've met people. Oh, Richard Petty hugged me and kissed me on the cheek. I'll never wash again. Or I shook David Pearson's. I'll never. You know, people say that kind of thing. But you know, somebody's got to be really elevated, and then we've got to really think of them as something special to say something like that. So for somebody to say their greatest compliment is not an exaggeration. That's the way they feel. But there's very few people in that category, I think. Well, to Kyle Harvey, you're one of them. So is that maybe the way you want to be remembered? Is that, you know?
I just want to be remembered as a hard worker, being honest, treating other people like you want to be treated yourself. Just be friends with everybody, and if you can help them out, help them out. And there's nothing wrong. I can go all over the country right now, and if I break down, if I sit around there and think long enough, there's somebody I can call up. Mm-hmm. And I have on occasions. I mean, New Hampshire, Illinois. I got a friend in Illinois that helped us out, Ernie Whittington. 2 or 3 years ago, her and I were heading up to Wisconsin at Christmas time. In Bloomington, I burned a right front wheelbarrow out on a Saturday night.
Oh boy!
Yeah, and so we got a motel in Bloomington. The next morning, I called Ernie up and asked him if he had a.
Didn't call Terry Shirley? He's in that area.
Yeah, I called Terry.
Good friend of mine, him and Susie.
Yeah, I'm good friends with Terry. I've called him already too, but with Ernie, I called him up and told him I was broke down there in Bloomington. He went and got his truck, and his trailer came and picked me up in Bloomington, hauled our car back to. He's in Princeton. It's between Rockford and Bloomington, and called the man from the parts house and got the parts. Had his grandson come and take the car apart. Well, he and I went and picked the parts up. When we got back to the garage, he had the car apart already, the spindle and the hub off of it, and we put the new stuff on, and we were headed back up the road already by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So, I mean, I got friends like that all over the place. Police officers I know in Mexico and other places, Oklahoma. One day a state trooper, we had second flat tire on the trailer for that day. Didn't have another spare. We pulled over on the side of the road. We're looking down the road. There's a trooper sitting in between the median on the interstate. Pretty soon he come driving up there. And he says, you got a flat tire, I see? I said, yeah, and I ain't got no spare. I said, is there a wrecking yard around? I got maybe a wheel or a tire. He said, throw that thing in my trunk, and I'll run down here to a wrecking yard. Threw it in his trunk. He was gone for maybe 45 minutes. He came back with 2 rims with tires on from the wrecking yard and gave them to us.
Wow.
And he said to me, you know what I was doing up there in the median? I said, I imagine you were checking cars for speeding with radar. No, he said, I was sitting up there reading the story here about you in Stock Car Magazine.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine
Timing's everything.
Wow.
Wow.
That's the honest to God's truth. I mean.
Wow.
And I don't know if the guy in the wrecking yard gave him them rims and tires, but he gave them to us.
And you weren't going to ask.
Yeah. So, I mean, stuff like that. So if you treat people good, I mean, they'll treat you good.
Man of integrity. Yeah. I will say, and I'm not giving out his number, but I've called him for different things. First time about 22 years ago when I wrote the Joy Fair book to get a quote from you. Mr. Marcis answered the phone. Recently I called him again. He didn't answer the phone, but he called me back. Now you tell me how many superstars you're a superstar, let's face it, are going to not only see that you called, but call you back.
Well,
it doesn't happen.
I like a friend of mine that just called. His name is Mike Patrick. He's a mink farmer in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I told him we're doing a TV interview, and I'll call him back. He's been friends with him.
And he knows you will.
Yeah.
You kept your word.
Yeah. So I will call him back.
Well, again, my bias is going to show in that as a reporter, I don't care, but I appreciate you taking the time. Out of your, I mean, retirement is cool. You can do what you want, You don't have a schedule except, this dope wants to come and interview me. So I'm like, okay, I got to make a different schedule today. But I really appreciate it. And the stories have been great.
I've always got along good with people. So I was always, and it sounds funny sometimes when I say it, I was a big fan of Richard Petty's. You know, we ain't that far apart in age, I guess,
right.
but when we had that night in Hollywood or something, and we were out there, and I said that there on the stage, and everybody laughed because growing up as a kid, I was a fan of Richard Petty's, and I meant that because I was, and I know some people said, "What's he talking about? A kid? They're both about the same age." But when I came to NASCAR, the first person to come and looked at my race car in that NASCAR garage and was Richard Petty, and he looked it all over and complimented me on it. And he had seen the car before because Don Biederman had it, but he didn't really pay that much attention to it, I guess. But it's just stuff like that.
A lot of drivers have said that one of the first guys that came to greet him was Richard Petty.
Yeah.
Guy that won, like Darrell Basham, for example, said, I ran one race at Nashville. He said, I'm in the bathroom, and Richard, he used the bathroom too. Hey, I'm Richard, and nice to meet you, and a few questions, and, he said, I was a nobody, and here's one of the first guys ever, so, integrity.
Back in the old days when we were running all the races, Wednesday night, Columbia, South Carolina on dirt. Friday night, Hickory, North Carolina with the same race car. Sunday afternoon, Richmond, Virginia. That Friday night in Hickory, North Carolina, after the race, almost midnight, Richard Petty was still signing autographs for them people coming out of the stands. Damn near midnight. Them guys today don't do it.
No, not even close. Well, nowadays, your interviews times are set up. You go to the media center. This is when he's available. And I understand you got media obligations. You got to go to the sponsors. I get it. But
probably more than half of those kids that were 6 and 8 and 10 or whatever getting their autographs from Richard probably became race fans and helped pay our bills, sat in grandstands and bought tickets to come.
I even talked to somebody the other day, said, even if you do exactly like Richard Petty or Dave Marcis, you can't go wrong. Why wouldn't you at least try?
Yeah.
You're having a bad day. I get it. Control yourself. It's not that hard to do. I mean,
We're all in the same boat.
But that's another show. So, again, thank you for having me here. And you said Arden. I think of Skyland.
My mailing address is Skyland. My mailing address is Skyland because there's a lot of little post offices here, and Skyland is closer to our house, and it was closer to our shop. Now in my new shop, which is in Arden, it's closer to the Arden post office, but that wasn't the case when I first came here in 1969.
In the programs, I've seen all three. Skyland, Avery's Creek, Arden. But anyway, in the western part of the state, beautiful property, beautiful house, beautiful people. Can't thank you enough for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
There were two people extremely instrumental in showing me how amazing motorsports could be. Well, the last of those two has finally passed away. And for losing my dad, I'm going to take the next week off, so please tune back in here in 2 weeks at Stock Car Facts. Have a great 14 days, and we'll see you at Michigan International Speedway. Thanks for watching.